Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Today is Wednesday. Happy Wednesday, everybody, and welcome. So we're letting people in, and so thank you for being here. We will be starting in a few minutes. How is everyone doing today? Panelists, how are you? Moderator, how are you? Please, I feel very alone speaking to myself virtually.
Hello,
Hello, everyone.
Hello, hello.
Being here from the Simon on a sunny, beautiful day in Senegal.
Yay. Thank you. That's actually a very good start, Miss Molly. Maybe people can put in the chat where they are joining us from. Yes, and perhaps just your name, your organization, and what beautiful city you are joining from. And we will get started in 2 minutes. Right, so we have people from Canada, we have people from Washington. Welcome, welcome. We see a lot of friends and partners. We appreciate your time. All right, all right. Manitoba. That's a beautiful name. Hello, Jenna. Boa tarde, Joelma. Hello, Bob from Pasadena, California.
I was just in Pasadena, Bob. Yeah.
Hello, Amina. Hello, Miss Kelly. All right, so perhaps we can start the introductions and the opening of the panel to honor those who were on time. We don't have any prizes the way we sometimes do at Tostan when people are right on time. But thank you to all of you for joining us this afternoon. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Karina Njai, and I have the honor and the privilege of being Tostan's Chief Partnerships Officer. And I am representing the rest of the C-suite, Kaji and Elena, who are not here right now, but are here in spirit. And we want to thank you so much for taking the time to join us to participate in this conversation, which we hope you will find not only insightful, but inspiring. And one of the reasons we thought this pinch, which in Senegal is a gathering of community members to discuss issues that impact the community, that touch the hearts, the wallets, the environment in the community where we live, we thought it was important to get together because we are going through individually and collectively a time where there is a lot of reactivity based on socio-political, cultural events. There is a lot of fear, but there's also a desire to anchor ourselves in what is intuitively rooting, which is community, understanding, conversation, and enough respect where differences can be transformed into opportunities for understanding. So we wanted to bring together a panel of extremely inspiring, but more than inspiring, extremely open-minded and curious individuals that I have the privilege of working with every day, who work at Tostan, but also who have founded Tostan. So individuals who operate from a place of curiosity and respect to look at the synergy between challenges and opportunities, but also what it means to deconstruct and reconstruct our framework of operation, whether it is at a community level, at a corporate level, at a sector level, in order to move forward as a group. So I hope that I set the stage in a way that's not confusing, but let me go a little bit more into detail. So we have today with us as a panelist, our founder, visionary extraordinaire, Molly Melching. We also have my colleagues that inspire me every day, Joelma Pereira from Guinea-Bissau and Edrisa Keita from the Gambia. And I wish you could feel the energy that they produce every day in terms of the service that they provide, but also the ability to listen, learn from, and then collectively act for the betterment of the communities that we serve and that we partner with. All right, enough about me and Tostan, but I am now passing over to my colleagues, and I wish you a fantastic webinar. Over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Karina. Also echoing Karina in welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. We understand that schedules are tight and you could be anywhere else and doing many other things. And so we don't take it for granted that you have joined us today. So Karina has introduced our panelists, and I'm excited to speak with them today. So I'm just going to dive right in. For housekeeping, I just will remind you that our question and answers will be taken. So please feel free to place your questions in the chat box. We do have someone monitoring the chat box, so your questions will be answered today, hopefully, if we can get to them all. And if not, we will send an email to answer the questions that we weren't quite able to get to today. So, Molly, I have a question for you. And this is a question that many have been curious about. So I'd like to start with you, if that's okay. Tostan has a long history of empowering communities through community-led development model. Can you share with us how this approach has contributed to strengthening grassroots democracy, as well as promoting human rights in countries where Tostan has operated? Molly, I think you're on mute.
Sorry. Hello, everyone. So happy to be here with you today. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for the question, Danielle. It's a very important question because it reflects some of the great results we've had over the 33 years that Tostan has been implementing our program in rural, mostly rural communities throughout Senegal and in 7 other East and West African countries. You know, I speak from experience because this issue of democracy and human rights really came to fruition in 1996. Now, we were founded in 1991, but we had a program where we hadn't really included human rights and democracy. For 6 years then, we were able to implement our program with good results in health and in literacy, in project management skills. And in the environment, we did a lot of the environment at that time. But then something amazing happened. We introduced human rights within our women's health module. And this was related to women's health. So we did women's rights. Actually, that was a bit of it wasn't a mistake. It was it was a lesson learned. It was a lesson learned because, of course, when you do just women's rights, you can imagine there was a reaction and a bit of backlash, quite a bit of backlash, actually, from the men. And so in 2000, Tostan sat down and we changed our whole program so it included human rights and responsibility, but introduced through how people wanted to organize to achieve their vision of well-being for their communities. So we did democracy and human rights, from the very beginning as of 2000. And we could really see the difference when we added these modules into our program. So we had that experience because when we did, all of a sudden, people were doing things that were quite surprising to us, actually. We had not imagined that it could have such an impact. They had decided to end female genital cutting, child marriage. They worked on ending violence, all forms of violence against women, but children also, and even against men. And it was so amazing that we realized it was such an important part of the program. And then when we also started establishing community management committees in each village. Now, these were new for the villagers where we worked, for the communities, because it federated the different communities that sometimes already existed, sometimes they didn't. But it federated the health committees, the education committees, the social mobilization committees, the finance and project management committees. They were working on income generating projects, and they would meet at least once a month. And they each had committees that we had leaders and coordinators who were responsible for making sure that other community members were very active within their committees. It was very exciting to see that this was actually practice for them to be leaders in the community. And it led them then eventually to have that experience and to go on when we actually started working at a district level and training district councils on the different areas in which they have new competencies, that is the health, education, environment, et cetera. Then they had experience in leading committees, and that is why so many of the women and the participants of the Tostan program went on to be elected to the district councils in their area, and which is very exciting because they had done so much work on human rights and responsibilities and how you apply those, how you actually go to action. Once you learn you have the right to be free from all forms of violence, to have a healthy environment, then, I mean, I can give you so many examples, but just to stop there and say that it was a game changer in Tostan. We learned, across those years, we made mistakes, but they, again, were lessons learned. And that we then sat down and we changed so many things in our program based on all this feedback from the field, from the men, from the women, from the children, so that everyone was included in this process of evolving our program till it is what it is today in 2024 and is now being revised with a final edition that will come out in 2025. And of course, it's not a final edition because our program is always evolving based toujours always on feedback from the field, from the facilitators, from the participants, from the community management committees, from the supervisors, and from the pedagogical team in Chess, in our office in Chess, that is in close contact with everyone in the field.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Molly. Democracy is such a relevant topic especially here in the U.S. But not only that, there are more than 30 elections that I understand that are happening around the globe this year. So it's quite amazing to hear about Tostan's learnings and approach with grassroots movements. So I'd like to now move to Edrisa in the Gambia. We've recently witnessed community mobilization in response to a bill introduced to Parliament aimed at repealing the prohibition of female genital cutting. Could you talk to us a little bit and share with us how Tostan's partner communities have been at the forefront of these efforts and how Tostan has approached and Tostan's approach and how they've empowered them to take such a strong stance?
Thank you very much, Daniel. This was an important turning point as far as Tostan is concerned. We have a Women's Act in the Gambia, 2010 to 2015. This act did not have any penalty or provision that prohibit the practice of female genital cutting. Until in 2015, after a presidential declaration, it became a law in December 2015. And there was a provision on section 32A and B that prohibit the practice of FGMC, but also there were penalties for imprisonment and options of fine. But there was no arrest or sentencing for so many years until around August 2023, 3 women in the Central River region were arrested and they underwent the legal processes, and finally they were convicted and charged. This sparked a lot of controversy because religious leaders stood very firm. They even paid the fine for these 3 women that were convicted at the court. And from there, they visited this community and held a meeting and said, what you did is correct. Nobody should sentence you. Nobody should disgrace you. This is a culture, this is a tradition, and we should continue doing it. So this sparked a real controversy in the Gambia, the entire the television station, but also on social media. And they campaigned with some National Assembly members even to repeal the existing law in the National Assembly. This was early August 2023. In September 2024, convinced by the work that Tostan is doing with the communities in the Central River region, 126 communities prepared and led a very joyous and celebration to abandon female genital cutting in their communities, both north and south. This included 60 communities that we are working directly with, but also another 66 communities that were neighboring these 60 communities. They share their new knowledge, their new experiences, and also they have been their social networks. So they do this sharing for them because they are really convinced that this practice is against human rights of women and girls, but equally, it has a long-term impact on their health and well-being. So once they understand this through the program offered by Tostan, despite the height of that controversy, religious leaders and their supporters all over the country, these communities were convinced that what we learned from Tostan is a transformation that needs to be led by ourselves. And they conducted this public declaration in September 15th, 2023. And this continue on a debate. The debates continue at the National Assembly. Tostan, we believe that the empowered communities have the ability to express themselves, especially these women, the social mobilizers, the community management committee, and the young people, convincing that yes, we have new knowledge, we are able to participate, we have that voice, and our vision is to enhance our own well-being, including health. These are the people who mobilize themselves, invited by the Health Committee of the National Assembly that is spearheading the national consultations of the Gambian population to see their perspectives on the practice of the FGMC within the law, within society, within social norms, but also what is going to be the voice of the people, the population. And they are able to convince the National Assembly members. They did series of engagements to convince them that, yes, for us, we are really convinced that these practices are harmful. We are women. We believe in the respect for human rights, but also the well-being, health, and dignity for us, but also for our children, even including our mental. And we believe that this practice needs to end. So after a series of months, almost 13 months of engagement, these brave women never relent on their efforts. They never relent contacting the National Assembly members. They never relent to travel over 300 kilometers to go to Banjul to visit National Assembly members, but also engage the National Assembly members from their various constituencies. They did not stop there. They took it upon themselves. They go to various communities to talk to them using very respectful, inclusive manners as how they learn from Tostan Community Empowerment Program. Eventually, in July 2024, the National Assembly members sat down and they are able to maintain this law as of today. And these brave women have played a significant role in this, because even those who were against this law, what they were saying, they said they are definitely there to speak on behalf of the people. They are there to speak on behalf of the general population, women and girls that are in the communities. Now, those are the very people who spoke and said, this is violating our human rights, our health, and our dignity. We experience it. We don't want it to happen to our daughters and our grandchildren in the future. We want to live a healthy life. So at the end of the day, this has a very, very positive and respectable impact on the work that Tostan is contributing towards empowering the people, because they led everything that happened during these 8 to 9 months of very hard work and engagement to convince the National Assembly members, but also their community members from URR, from CRR, and all over the country. This was so amazing opportunity for these communities to voice out what they think this important transformative educational program of Tostan offered them. How is it transforming their lives? And they continue the advocacy today.
Excellent, excellent. I'm so impressed by that, Edrisa, and the civic engagement and how community organizations and our partner communities were able to kind of galvanize and really advocate for their visions and their thoughts and their well-being. So excellent to hear. We're going to move to Joelma. And Joelma, you've recently joined Tostan as the national coordinator in Guinea-Bissau. From your perspective, how do you see the role of local ownership in ensuring long-term success and sustainability of community-led initiatives? Also, go ahead.
Sorry.
I have a two-part question, so I'll let you answer that one first, and then I'll circle back.
Hi, everyone. Sustainability is really at the core of Tostan program. And obviously, Tostan program is human rights based and is respectful and inclusive, as my colleagues, finalists just said, but is holistic and sustainable. And Tostan at the early sort of stages of implementing this program ensures that the program is going to be sustainable by structuring the program in such a way that it leaves the community management committees in place to ensure the continuation of the activities for the well-being of the community, inclusively participatory. And this community management committees are really led by women, and wonderful, dynamic, eager women that drive and lead activities supported by the community as a whole, supported by men, supported by all members of the community. That really brings change. And I can give several examples from women that really lead projects of building schools, projects of building health centers, projects of ensuring the registration of the children in the communities where they lead the community management community, and also in neighboring communities. We have women that support campaign vaccination in their communities that need that. So this is really people that have been empowered by the knowledge they gain from the program, but also not shy at all to share their learnings, what they learn from the program with their peers, with their neighbor communities, at the community level, at the district level, and at the regional level. And one of the examples also from my colleague that we shared cross-border with Gambia is just to give you an idea of they're so determined for social transformation, well-being, not only for their communities, but really this movements are becoming sort of really international movements because they really cross-border as well. So definitely the sustainability is at the core and is intentional when we implement the program.
Excellent, Joelma. And can you talk to us a little bit about how Tostan ensures that the social changes initiated through its program continue to thrive?
The social changes really, Tostan stays an outsider from the start of the implementation of the program. The social changes are led by the community because the community themselves know their problems better than anybody. And we facilitate for them to lead their social change. And the change comes within. And obviously, by the sharing of the knowledge through the program, they realize what they want, they envision their future, how they want it, who will contribute, and they also realize that they cannot do it on their own. They cannot do it. They have to do it for the well-being and collectively. They have to do it together. So it's not about sort of promoting only women and leaving men behind, or promoting only men and leaving women behind. It's about everybody to act together in an inclusive and participatory way to actually move the social transformation agenda. And then themselves choosing what they want to move and how they want to move it. And it's just amazing the results that I just shared. Because of what? Because they decided, and we back them up, but they decide themselves how they want to go about it, and then we support it throughout the way, throughout that journey. And it's just amazing to see how they influence others to move, to do the same, to replicate. It's really sort of organic, but then the transformation is within, and then they envision it and they move forward with it. And for us, it's so gratifying. I joined Tostan recently, but I'm just so really passionate about seeing that transformation and seeing evidence in the communities.
Thank you so much, Joelma. Two things really resonate with me, and that's the inclusivity, and then those that are closest to the challenges also have the solutions and should have a seat at the table in terms of their well-being and their future. So thank you so much for your response. I'm going to move and direct a question to Molly now. Molly, it's been 50 years. Can you believe it? Since your personal journey with communities in West Africa following your arrival in Senegal. Over this time, I'm sure that you've encountered many inspiring stories of positive change. Could you share with us a little bit about some of the most impactful stories that exemplify Tostan's model, specifically fostered around women's leadership?
Oh, wow. I have so many, but perhaps I could tell you about one that particularly marked and moved me deeply. I tell you, years ago, I was turned on the radio in the morning to hear the news. And what did I hear but that women in a community in southern Senegal was leading a march across the community to promote peace, well-being, and health, and in violence against all forms of violence in the community. And this just happened to be a Tostan community. And I said, wow, a march. And I called and found out that there had been a man who had beat up his wife, and she was pregnant and had to go to the hospital. And the women in the class that were going through learning their human rights, learning their responsibilities in relation to those human rights, they decided to go see the local authority and tell them they wanted to do a march to let everyone in the community know that this was no longer accepted. Well, he refused. He said, we've never had a march in the village. You can't do that. And they said, we know our human rights. We know it's in the Constitution that we have the right to actually march and promote. This is a positive march for peace and well-being. And he said no, but they went to the governor and they got permission to march, to call in journalists and say, across with their pots and pans, singing in the local language in Mandenka, they sang, no more violence in our community, no longer accepted. Peace, well-being, health for the future is what we will achieve. And when they reached the end of the community, or where it moved into the big national park in the south, Neokolokoba, they met the gendarme who was there, the police who was at that station, who met with them, who was very nice. And they made it clear, we are not marching against men. We are marching so that we will have no violence against children, women, and men. This is for all of us. And that impacted me so strongly. And I went down to visit and talk to them. And the men said, because of this, the way in which they framed this, that they decided they were going to support the women. And they were actually behind a whole movement to end female genital cutting in many communities surrounding this village. And guess what? They have continued on over the years, and they have led many other communities to decide also to abandon all forms of violence, including female genital cutting and child marriage. And that declaration will be held this December 1st, 2024. But also, it was incited by the knowledge that people have and their desire to see others join in this movement, because they enjoy the living in peace and without violence, because they made it clear. They said it will no longer be accepted. And I just felt that was so profound and such a lesson learned. And what was amazing is that we saw that methodology of it was, I can't call them protests, but these marches, peaceful marches with their banners. I knew immediately when I heard in the futa that the class had the flip chart paper with it written on the flip chart, into child marriage. Some man had tried to take his girl out of school at 12 years old and marry her to an older man. And the class, they decided to march to the mayor's office and say, we do not accept this anymore. This is not acceptable. So I saw this being multiplied across the country as a way to show people that the whole community, now this is social pressure. This is a new social rule, norm, a new social norm. Only health, well-being, and peace, which are our values, which correspond to our religion. and to our deeper values, and the other will no longer be tolerated. It will not be accepted, and we will do something about it. And actually, that man actually decided to leave his daughter in school, by the way. Oh. So it worked. And then I have many other examples. We don't have time to go into them all, but I have so many times when I thought, if just this one thing, it would be worth it all. Really? All 33 years of Tostan, but of course that goes beyond those 33 years because we started actually the program as really at the Children's Center in Dakar in 1982. So, but that's another story for another webinar.
Well, we do have a series of webinars, and so we'd love to hear. I also want to remind our participants that this is an interactive webinar, so we want to hear from you. Please feel free to place your questions in the chat. We will try to answer them. So now I have a question for all of our panelists, and I'm going to start with Joelma. Looking forward, what do you see as the biggest challenges to empowering grassroots democracy and leadership in West Africa? And what are also the opportunities to kind of overcome some of these obstacles?
I think opportunities, I see really the fact that the communities are already eager. You see a lot of young people. We live in a globalized world. Everybody has access, more access to digital information, opportunities to learn, opportunities to change. The world is such a small place now. But you have those amazing women and children and men in the community that are really eager to drive their own visions. And also, I mean, in terms of challenges, the context really as a whole it can be a bit of a challenge for them. For example, I can see like lack of infrastructure sometimes can be a challenge. Economic opportunities can be a challenge. Then apart from that, I mean, the context, sort of regional context, sometimes can be really a challenge. But apart from that, I think there's more opportunities in general than challenges because people are really they have that mindset that want to develop that community. The development needs to start from them and then that community and then the region and then gradually. They don't want anymore to wait on outsiders in general to come and develop their own community. Yeah. So that is what I really see. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Moving to Edrisa.
Thank you very much. And a challenging opportunity within this context. I see so many challenges despite opportunities, despite challenges like policy shift versus social norm change. This is an important learning point, but also an opportunity for us. When you connect what has happened in the Gambia, for example, we have witnessed communities as self-advocating, empowered communities because they have been empowered, they have understand issues and they can articulate on issues around their well-being, health, human rights, you name them. And we, based on our journey, now than ever before, we believe it is very important to support community-led movements that will drive change in the Gambia and even beyond the Gambia. As Joelma have said, Gambia and Guinea-Bissau, Senegal, you name them, they have a lot in common in terms of socio-cultural, but also linguistic, social networks, etc., etc. So when movements are being built just from within the people, based on the new knowledge experiences that they learn, they want to take appropriate, peaceful actions around them. That is a very important opportunity as far as we are concerned as an organization to support spread the scaling of such movements is important, especially in the Gambia and beyond. We also recognize, for example, as a challenge that religious leaders that support to understand, for example, social norms, religion and human rights, what are the perspectives? They are important. Therefore, training of religious leaders within the context of Christian work is very important because these are aligned with our religion, but also positive social norms and cultures. Thank you.
Thank you, Edrisa. And finally, we'll hear from Molly about what you see as some of the biggest challenges to empowering grassroots democracy, and also if you could highlight the opportunities that you also see.
Yeah, I would love to highlight some opportunities. I think we're beginning to see now the results long-term of our program in countries. I'll just give you the example of Djibouti. We left Djibouti 10 years ago after doing our program in 33 communities in Djibouti. And we recently, about 3 or 4 months ago, got a call from them saying that the program had impact. Since we left, all the communities that the European Union called and said, we have been visiting the communities. And those communities they actually abandoned FGC. They were surprised. And the community management committees are so active and so involved, and they have partnerships with government, they have partnerships with other NGOs, and they know how to lead, and they know how to include everyone in the community. And they sent 22 new participants recently, last month, or in August, actually, to get information so that they could learn from the key aspects of Tostan's program. And I was very excited to hear that. Those are opportunities we see that we can highlight so that people understand, because the question they ask, this is a challenge we've had, is people always say to me, 3 years is too much. And I say, look, we've all had 20 years of education. A lot of people on this call, you've had many, many years of education, and people expect to have important results. Social norm change, as Edrisa and Joelma have talked about,
yes,
in months or even in a year, but it does take time. So the challenges that, we are seeing that people even a challenge is people want to learn even more. So we added a module on early childhood development, and we added a module on peace and security at their request. So we realized the opportunity is that if we reach these adults who are parents, the youth who will soon have children, it can change the future of the youth who are so, that's more than half the population of Africa right now.
Sure.
Because they have a huge impact on their children. The challenges have been many over the years, and I think Tostan has learned lessons from those challenges, as Edrisa said. We've learned that the protests from the religious leaders who did not understand that human rights are principles and values that are upheld by the sacred religious texts of all religions, Christianity, Islam. Even we had a Buddhist from Uganda who showed how human rights corresponded with his Buddhist principles. So when they understand this, and this is why we do so much training for religious leaders before we even start the program. Why? Because they then are very supportive. They even give talks in the mosque on the importance of respecting people's human rights and respecting also their responsibilities in relation to these human rights. So we've learned when we did have religious leaders who stood up because they didn't understand. They didn't understand the program. And so by doing the seminars with them, sharing seminars, exchanges, not imposing, not judging, I think we learned how we could circumvent many of these challenges that arise. Those are just one examples. We've had other challenges, 33 years of challenges, but also we've had many I guess I always love to say that Tostan is an organization that really listens and learns and is open to change when we see that we may have made mistakes or gone the wrong way. And by listening deeply, we've been able to work with the communities to change the program and revise according to what we have found works in the communities for them to be able, as Idris's and Joelma have said, to be able to lead and advocate. Because when people say to me, oh, do you advocate at the UN? Da, 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 I say, no, it's the populations that are now advocating for their rights, for their future, for their priorities. And that was my dream. And my dream also, when I founded Tostan 50 years ago, was that it be African-led. And I'm so proud to see Idrisa, who's been in our program from the government originally, and then he was assistant coordinator. And as a Gambian, the whole team is Gambian. And Joelma, who is from Guinea-Bissau and who is leading and as a woman, I'm proud of that also, in Guinea-Bissau. And her whole staff is also from Guinea-Bissau. And in fact, in 2025, our whole leadership team will be African. And I'm so proud of that because that is the way it should be, I think. It will be African-led by the people from their countries who are affected by with their own priorities and vision for the future.
Thank you, Molly. That's so very important. We do have a few questions from the chat. So I am going to ask, you've actually mentioned lessons learned over the years. Could you share a few key transformative lessons that really helped to shape your approach? I know you've shared with us, in the initial first 6 years, that human rights was not at the core of the program. But can you share with us any other transformative lessons?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm directing it to you, Molly.
I think one of the most important lessons learned, and this was learned from a village leader who, in fact, had never been to school, but he did go through the Tostan program when he was 60 years old, who loved Tostan. And when one village initially stood up and decided to abandon female genital cutting on their own, when I say on their own, it was because, as this man who was a village chief and a religious leader told me, Molly, you cannot change a deeply entrenched, embedded practice like female genital cutting in one family, one community, because we are bigger than that. My village is small, but it is very large also, because he was referring to the extended network. And he taught us that if you want to make changes in practices that are upheld by social rules, where you are respected if you follow and you're punished if you're not, you have sanctions, and they carry deep value for people. And I think this was a turning point for us. And I think I credit Demba with starting this whole emphasis that people now put in all UN organizations and in other NGOs, that, when you have a practice that is a social norm, you do need to reach all those people who are the people who matter to them. So you can't just go to one village and expect change because they have too much social pressure. Another, one is the language you use. We learned early on that imposing judgmental vocabulary in the communities just made people very defensive. Mm-hmm. We saw it in the communities. The facilitators were trying to get the people to stop this or that or whatever, and they come back, oh my gosh, they're so defensive. Well, we decided, no, this is not the way to go. And we looked at that and we realized that, and we are very much promoting what we call psychological reactance theory, and showing in our sharing seminars with other local NGOs that it's normal. It's a natural response, a human response, when someone comes in attacking you, fighting against, saying men do this, or you're to blame, or this is a barbaric practice. not only are you making them even more defensive and closing doors to dialogue, but in a collectivistic society like Africa, you're judging not just one person or one community, their whole ethnic group is being judged because they do this. And it makes them even more defensive, which is why Tostan really tries to share what we do and why we think it works. We try not to impose because we know that won't work. But what we do share is response from the villagers who come and talk at our seminars and explain that this is what has worked with them. They go in just saying, this is what we've decided to do because it corresponds, it aligns with our values and principles. And so those were several lessons learned, but I have many more, and we can address that at another time.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Molly. I do have quite a few questions from the chat. So, Joelma, I'm going to go to you. Can you talk to us about, in the next decade, what major impact would you hope to see from community-led movements inspired by Tostan's model?
In Guinea-Bissau, I really hope to see like community federations, really big movements like happen in Senegal, really. I would like to see sort of more sort of collective actions, but that does not limit themselves up to district level, but they get together at the regional level and more sort of exchange internationally with Senegal, with Gambia, really because they share common sort of in terms of culture and habit. Most of them are similar tribes. They share also common challenges. So really that movement, they in a very sort of inclusive and a very participatory way, but really growing the mass. And that is really important. I would like to see that. And also grow from the other aspect, grow sort of really partnership nationally, and for those movements to have support nationally.
Excellent. Wonderful. I think I can have time to take one more. We have several, so we will address those questions via email when we share out the recording of this webinar, and we will also address these questions. But Molly, I'm going to come back to you. How do you think Tostan's approach can be useful on a global level?
Wow. I just recently was in the United States in different presentation and participated in many different events. And the question people always say to me, or what they say and can ask, is how can we have a program like this in the United States? Because there are things that you've talked about that could really work here. And I believe it's really important at this time when societies all over the world are moving away from democratic practices and are divided so drastically, and they're not listening to one another and being very judgmental in the ways in which they talk and refuse to put themselves in other people's shoes, be empathic. I call it an empathic approach. And I'm not saying that, you could take our program and implant it elsewhere, but certainly we could exchange and learn from one another. And we do. We have started that. We have started doing seminars for people, like we had American University of Washington, D.C. We had 22 educational doctoral students come. And they saw how this could be very effective in the communities and schools in which they are working. It was very exciting. And I learned from them, and we all, our trainers at the center, learned from them. And I recently went back during this trip and met with them again and saw not only how they were using it in their classrooms in schools and with other students in their program, but even one woman said, it really helped me within my family. My family dynamics have totally changed, and I want to thank you, because that is what I really took away from that sharing seminar we did in Chess in Tostan in Senegal. But I think there are many other ways also.
Sure.
I think that democracy and human rights and responsibilities, principles for human rights and responsibility. I'm not talking about going through and reading articles. I'm talking about really getting people to discuss these things. They lead to very deep conversations. And I believe it really transforms people, their lives, and also their communities, which we have seen. And I think it's from the grassroots that you can build change on a higher level also. I really believe that's so important, and that's what may be lacking in the US right now, right before these elections.
Yes, tell me about it. Thank you so much, Molly. And I understand that American University has also gone to the board and deans to make the trip to Tostan in Senegal part of their African Studies program. So wonderful to hear about that. So, unfortunately, our time has come. I'm going to hand it over now for some closing remarks. And I just want to thank the panelists for participating. I want to thank everyone for being here, but I'm going to turn it over right now to our board chair, Kelly Hawk Baxter.
Thanks, Danielle. And thank you to Molly, Edrisa, Joelma, and to you, Danielle, for the informative conversation. I hope the rest of you on the call found the conversation as informative and inspiring as I did. I really appreciate Molly telling us how Tostan's program is always evolving as you are continually learning from communities. And I appreciate Edrisa's story of how grassroots women led the campaign in the Gambia to uphold the FGC law. It wasn't Tostan speaking on their behalf, but an example of civic leadership in action, which is really so much about Tostan's values. And I appreciate, Joelma, you sharing your sharing how Tostan's programs are structured to ensure sustainability, inclusivity, and local ownership. And Molly, I just love the story of the women marching, women knowing their own rights, but also standing up to protect the rights of others in an inclusive way by bringing the men along with them. I think that's really part of Tostan's secret sauce. I'm so proud to be associated with this thoughtful, respectful, and values-based organization, which has had such sustainable grassroots success over 30 years. Thank you to all of our partners and guests for taking the time to join us on this webinar today and for your thoughtful questions. I wish we had time for more. So I think you know this was the first of a series of 4 webinars in our 50 Years Together campaign. And 50 years is not just Molly's story, it's an organization-wide campaign that honors and expresses Tostan's sincere gratitude for the many partners and stakeholders that have helped shape our journey. Our next webinar will be in the first quarter of 2025, so watch your inboxes for more information. It will feature stories directly from our communities and community leaders that have helped to influence Tostan's approach. And I want to invite you to be part of our campaign. Please share your experiences and learnings from Tostan and with Tostan so that we can feature them in our newsletters and stories in 2025. You can find more information about the 50 Years campaign on our website. And I'll close by saying partnership is the core of everything we do at Tostan. We are so grateful to the many partners who have helped further our mission, and that includes all of you on the call today. Tostan needs the continued support of our partners as we build on our past and continue to catalyze social transformation and community well-being for the next 50 years with a new generation of leaders and partners. Thank you for accompanying us on our journey to promote dignity for all, and we'll see you on the next webinar. And that's it.
Thank you, everyone.